with that. So, hi Ming, thank you very much for being here with us today at the speaker series for AI Paths. A lot of our fellows and students are going to be very thankful for your contribution with us here today. And I feel very pleased and honored to have the chance to interview with you. So, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. This is how I'm gonna start this by talking a little bit about you. So you're a data scientist at the Climate Corporation, and I looked at your career path. I saw that you started with your bachelor in chemistry,
Yeah.
and then you went straight to your PhD in computational chemistry. After your yeah, and after your PhD, you got into Stanford for your postdoc.
Right.
Yeah, and you worked at the Center for Interface Science and Catalysis.
Mhm.
And I saw that you did a lot of computational modeling and used like popular data science tools over there.
Yeah, that's true.
And after your postdoc, you transitioned into data science. You became a data scientist at the Climate Corporation, which is your current role. So, very impressive career. And the first question is, I would really like to know how did that happen? Like, how did you transition from chemistry and computational chemistry, engineering, catalysis into data science? Can you share a little bit about your story with us, please?
Sure. Yeah. So, mostly is I think the career change happens between my postdoc research and when the time when I search for the industry jobs. And most of my PhDs was doing the computational and theoretical chemistry research, which I get involved a lot of programming tools like Python, even Fortran at that time. And we also having some related courseworks about like statistics and some basic knowledge of statistics. And
Hmm.
at that time, I get to know the fancy concept of machine learning. So I'm getting passionate about that. And in the
Nice.
postdocs, I actually trying to uh, get my projects a little bit related to machine learning. I think
Right.
there's a good opportunities between the science and like the chemistry and the machine learning. And when in terms of getting jobs, yes, there's a lot of because when I finished up my postdoc, I thought I really have passion to working as in the data in the industry and maybe as a data scientist. And as you know that for the data scientist, there's a lot of like a variety range in terms of what
Yeah.
type of area that you wanted to work. And I think I choose agriculture. So we are actually a digital agriculture company. And I'm choosing that because I feel we're doing this recommendation systems that can help farmers to do their best practice and then so that they can improve their yield of the farm, which I think is pretty rewarding. Like I can really use data to benefit the people maybe all around the world, mostly right now in
Wow.
US, but eventually my hope is kind of benefit people around the world. And that's why I kind of switched to this domain. But I should mention that even I switched, there's a lot of like chemistry related domain knowledge I still use in my work. So
Uh-huh. Nice.
because you know that this is chemistry is quite related in different aspects in the
Yes.
agriculture. So I'm actually still use some of my knowledges from what I learned from PhDs and postdocs, and
Nice.
that's undergrad.
That's an awesome story. I mean, you sound like you're making a high impact. Like it's a high impact career that you get to like help farmers and help
Yeah.
out people, right?
Yes, I am getting more and more interested in this area. So I'm trying to develop my domain knowledges in this area as well recently.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So my next question, I'm gonna ask you about some like day-to-day work, the work that you do day to day. You're like what I've been like many people experience in academia and industry. There's a difference. So
Mm-hmm.
in academia, I saw that most of the data sets are kind of clean, ready to
Mm,
use for
yeah.
conceptual use.
Yes.
So tell us about your day. Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stories is especially you bring up a very interesting aspect, which in academia, yes, we have usually will have a well-defined structural data, and usually it is very high quality, and we can directly use that into either training our model or understanding some of the uh, key problems that we ask ahead. But in industry, usually it's not the case.
Mm,
So we have a lot of messy data. And even before that, we will need to frame a data science problem, which basically you frame the data science problem that to answer some business questions that the industry or the company
uh-huh.
is interested in. And
Okay.
this is the first step that scoping a problem from a business perspective into a data science perspective is very challenging.
Oh,
Um,
is it?
yeah, and then the second part is actually the data collection part, which is not really going to, it's not already yet of you're doing data processing or wrangling. It's more like where and what to collect the data. So this
Uh-huh.
is always very vague, and which needs to clarify this kind of problem, you need to have a great communications across teams within the organization, usually with engineers, with database architects, with even with
Uh-huh.
domain knowledge experts to understand what kind of data you actually wanted to collect. So this is always a big problem, and you need to figure it out yourself. And I think this is what we actually lack when we're back in academia or even doing some sample projects through other platforms. Um, and I think the other part is processing and wrangling, data wrangling, and we will need to having some very challenging because sometimes the data quality is not as good as you expected, and as we all know
Okay.
that garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a bad quality of data, then you probably will not have a good predictive results. So we
Right.
need to spend a lot of time trying to improve the quality of data, and that is also another challenging part. But in general, I would say it's very different from what I experienced in industry uh, compared
Yeah.
with what I experienced in academia.
That's a huge difference. Like what you just explained, like you have to deal with a lot of stuff that nobody deals with academia. Like you gotta be a very good communicator. Like if you have to start by framing the problem, you
Yeah.
gotta talk to business people.
Yeah.
And
And
I think, yeah,
yeah, and you need to let business people know what's your need, because there's kinds of cross-function communications, and we use different terminologies. As a scientist, I always use maybe more kind of fancy words, but difficult to understand. And I really need to be on the same page with those like marketing people that they really understand what we are looking for.
that's kind of difficult, to communicate data science terms to business people. I bumped into this once during my internship, and it's really difficult. Like it's
Yeah.
not easy to build that communication and explain to them what the statistics mean.
Mhm. Yeah, that's difficult. So that's another part, like communication is very important.
And then after, like, you communicate with the business people and like find the right language, you have
Mhm.
to communicate with the technical, like other technical people to collect the data, like
Yeah.
the right.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like So it sounds like your role involves it's like cross-functional.
Yes, I think for data scientists, you actually wear many hats that you need to be a data query person and you need to be a good presenter to get to know all the different aspects. And you
Uh-huh.
probably need to get some domain knowledges, which helps you to better in the quicker way that you know what data you wanted to query. So, and as a scientist, you need to build your model and do the statistic analysis according to that.
Nice. So did you like get a chance to work on the computer science and IT components? Like I saw that you kind of worked on databases a little bit.
Hmm. The database. Yeah, so we mostly just do the data query stuff. So the database, I think we have separate roles for that.
Got
That
it.
they do the engineering parts will handle the larger scale database maintenance and other parts. But for data scientists, we probably will only do data query from different aspects, not only limited to database, but sometimes other resources like you probably will have open source or you
Yes.
probably have some like imagery based type of data that is not structured data, but it's more like imagery data. So
Okay.
yeah,
So um, we all know that the fun part of data science and machine learning is about building the models.
yeah,
I like that how you laugh, but you know what? Can you give me the percentage of the time you
yeah.
spend in your job on modeling versus the time you spend on data collection, communication, cleaning, all these stuff?
Yeah. Probably not surprisingly, actually, we spend 70% of time doing data cleaning, wrangling, communication, presentation, so on and so forth. And we probably only spend 20% of time with this fancy task of building machine learning models.
Yeah.
Even less, because I would say that once you get the predictive results from the trained machine learning model, the interpretation is the key. So you probably will just use 15% of time training the model, but you need to have another 15% of time really get to know what the model tells you. So in general, if you're just talking about training the model, it's only a very small portions because usually in the larger company or even a smaller size of company, you will have this well-defined infrastructure of the machine learning framework. And then you probably will do a lot of automations if you know what type of algorithms you wanted to use and what type of framework you're thinking about. So usually you will have this well-defined platform that can help you even accelerate model training process.
So I wouldn't call it's not an easy job, you know. Like okay, we're not gonna spend all our time doing fun stuff. It's like a lot of grit, a lot of like
Mm,
doing all these data cleaning and engineering and like it's
yeah. Yeah, you actually will do a lot of this kind of tiny uh, data collection and trying to understand and trying to wrangle it into a well-defined data structure that you can directly use in the model. But I would say this process is worthwhile because although sometimes it's
yes,
challenging. It's spending a lot of time doing this large scale messy data, but as long as you as more time you spend on it to clean, the more understanding of your data set. And this gonna to affect the modeling strategy because
yes,
depending on the different types of data, depending on the different qualities of data, the
absolutely.
model algorithm and other stuff you might choose is different. So this is actually helps you to even accelerate your first step. So you, the effort is not like you waste of your time, but you actually just to gain more understanding of your data that you're working with.
Looks like a lot of deep learning, a lot of like digging deep into it.
Yeah.
And probably you spend a lot of time in front of a computer screen, right?
Yeah, for sure. Most of the time, I would say really just all of the time.
And do you like, everybody's kind of working from home right now.
Mm.
Like, do you get tired? I get tired, like from sometimes I sit down and I start coding, and but it like gets tiring.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think I just trying to remind myself like when I work every maybe 2 hours, I should be away from my computer
Yes,
like 10 minutes just to get to
me
refresh
too.
my brain. Yeah. So yeah, it's you sometimes you concentrate on some stuff and then your time just spans. So
Wow, this is amazing.
yeah.
I think we covered a lot about what a day
Mm.
in the world of a data scientist is like. Are there any other like tips or information that would you like to add to students and fellows and like
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think first is because I kind of switch my domain knowledge, like my research area a little bit. And for those of you who also interested in data science, but right now not really in the data science related field, I would
uh-huh,
say that don't be like a little bit disappointed that you feel like you are a little bit far away from data science, because usually for the science the people who have a science background, we actually already dealing with data in the different format, but we have building up this thinking strategy that how we're gonna to dealing with data, and what the logics are very similar when you're coming to the data science world. So I think this this if you wanted to transition into the data science,
uh-huh.
this is actually related from what you actually learned in your undergrad, in your grad school. So don't be afraid to take a try if you're interested in that. And
Yes.
I think the second advice, maybe to the entry level data scientist, is that instead of getting to know all the data science knowledge in a broad way but shallow way, maybe trying to focusing on the same some small area and learn deeper and interpret it, that you know what's the trade-offs, why you're using that. I think this is something very important in the kind of interviewing sessions, that
Got it.
you probably know a lot of terminologies, but if you just don't know the details of that, you'll be easily failed in the technical round of the interview. So I suggest to, even for the really simple algorithm like linear regression, there's a lot
Yes.
of assumptions, a lot of like details that you probably need to learn before you just say, okay, I know how to use linear regression to train the model, but do you know the assumptions for that? So this is something I think
Got it.
if the entry level data scientists can learn that, that would be much easier for in the interview process.
Got it. So not only focus on the technical, but also the conceptual and the like the literature, that scientific literature behind it,
Yeah, yeah. More like a deeper. I think the deeper is better than the broader from
the
my personal
understanding.
experience, but maybe other people have a different opinion.
What about like people who are still not sure, like exact, like they're coming from a different discipline and they
Mhm.
want to get into data science? What about like when they're, you said it can be intimidating, it can be like, it
Mhm.
can be confusing. Like, do you think for them to choose a particular path, like natural language processing, like focus on something and like just learn more about this and build the expertise in this particular domain? Or do you think they should keep it general, or do you think it's different for different people?
I think it's different for depending on people's really the background. I think what you mentioned, like the computer vision and deep learning, might require more like a deeper technical background than the general track of the data scientist, because data scientists also have this modeling focusing, and also have this analytics focusing. So I think finding your interest will be the first thing, which part you're actually interested in, and maybe
Yes.
start with some general track to see if you're really passionate about it, because what you think data scientist is doing and what you actually doing is different. So maybe try something first, and before you say, okay, I really like this area. That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
thinking.
especially because it's a commitment. Like you have to spend a lot of hours on learning these paths and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. I think attending the seminars like AI Pass and other seminars will be great to get to know some insiders' opinions about that, and which
Yes.
also helps you to understand what the insiders will tell you.
Yes, thank you so much. Like this is very helpful. I learned a whole lot from you today. I
Great.
really appreciate it. Yeah.
Happy.
Do you have anything else to add for us?
No, I would just want to thank again for inviting me to share my experience, and I hope this information can at least help some of the people that in their kind of early stage career, or if they wanted to transition into the data science, they feel encouraged after hearing this session.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe on another date, we can have another chat and talk about maybe like the particular industry, like agriculture, and like get people probably more involved to that because I think it's very interesting. At least to me, I've looked into data science and agriculture, and I love it. So maybe we can do another time in the future. Thank you again so much. I'm very, very happy, very honored to have you with me here today, and we will see you soon.
Thanks.